cars, before tractors, before electricity made its way to the Irish countryside, life was very different. This time is still in living memory for the people who grew up here and who live here now. In the Mealagh Valley, hidden in the hills of County Cork, in the west of Ireland, we find the extraordinary in their ordinary. Their memories paint a picture of real lived experience and prevent their wisdom and knowledge from becoming lost in the ever-quickening currents of change.
Trying to hand it down to the next generation or the second next generation. As I said to you before, my father drilled it into me, but we didn't listen. We listened at it, but we didn't write it down.
In places like the Mealagh Valley, you could say really from the 30s until the EU money started coming in, that life didn't really change in hidden valleys like the Mealagh Valley.
Born on the 21st of the 3rd, 1947. I understand that was here in this house, because this is the house that I have always lived in.
I was born in the Mealagh Valley. Not everybody can say that. My mother told me, I think I was born on her way up the stairs in Art.
I was reared up where Pat is now, reared there. My father was buried in 1974, which I was only just turning 18.
You were young?
Yeah. The mother had about poor health. She had very bad eyesight, poor eyesight, and it was definitely different times to nowadays.
A lot of responsibility for it.
A lot of responsibility.
Now, that was survival. We were never hungry, but I always say we were reared in a cashless society. Very well self-sufficient. And in those days, one thing is very important for me to point out, that the women worked probably harder than the men.
There was a lot of hard work. My God, compared to today now, like. Everything was done by hand and
The way life have changed so much. My father used to always say to me like that, no matter how long you live, you would never see as much changes as he did in the lifetime, but by God, I've a lot of them seen. Definitely a lot of them seen.
Oh God, the farming long ago, it was everybody helped each other. There was nobody looking for money, like, kind of. You go to anybody to help them for a day and they'd come to you, like, and that's the way it was,
Yeah.
But we know nothing else, like. We know radio, papers and
So it was very little distraction.
very little. Yeah.
Then we had blueberries used to grow in a ditch. We had one ditch, and it was all the blueberries had grown in the summertime. But any time my mother would want us, she'd have to go outside of the house and call us. We'd be about, I'd say, from here down as far as the bushes out there away from the house, like, and she'd call us, and we would come home for dinner or for tea, back out.
Blackberries were the main thing, but there was one crab tree that just in the summertime we'd have great fun with that, picking them. They were wild, obviously. You'd have wild strawberries and the road and furze. That was about it, like.
Oh, it's about, yes, any blackberries and things like that, of course, we knew the seasons of them all right, and sometimes they were eaten when they were rather green, I'd say. Yeah. If they got anywhere near ripe at all.
You had jam when you had blackberries. People didn't just go out willy-nilly and buy jam. Most of the jam was made. And like, I have to keep repeating, saying that my parents' carbon footprint was very light. When I think of what rubbish we take to the recycling centre now, There was no rubbish. Everything was reused. There was no food waste because you had animals to eat it. Zero food waste. There was no plastic. We're back to the era of paper. Okay? And when you were finished with paper, you went in the fire to light the fire. You know?
There was no big collection, there was no...
Bin my hat.
When we started going to school, then it got a bit tougher, all right. You'd have to walk to school 2 miles and walk home again in the evening.
There are better times now. Yeah, there were much better times now than when I grew up. We had to walk to school. Yeah, we had a mile. We had a little over a mile to walk to communal school. Yeah, so rain, hail or snow, we'd have to still go to school.
Oh, walk it with our 2 legs.
We had to walk from here every day, so that wasn't, we didn't enjoy that.
So how many miles is it from here
I
to
think
school?
it's over 3 anyway.
Yeah.
And tell me, was the road hard at the time?
No, no, no.
And you had runners, I suppose, on your shoes?
They're all run back to the 1960s.
And
we went to a no shoe and find stones in the road. Broken stones. A lot of them from the end of the road overlooked, they'd go to barefoot even in the middle of the winter. Yeah. Barefoot to school. In the winter, cold, fresh on the road. They must have swords in their feet were down like steel.
We had 3 schools in the valley at one. We had the one at Inchclough, the one at Gortnacolly and the one at Drumcrook. Yeah.
I think there might be a fella in the back row there that you might see.
Oh, that's me, isn't it?
That's you.
I was English and Irish and arithmetic. They were really the main ones, I suppose, for a long time. Yeah. And then I suppose as we went, I was history and geography then as well.
The writing was done with the
Bit of quill?
the ink.
Yeah.
Oh, the Irish, it was like the Irish, all right.
There'd be a fire, but you know, the neighbours would bring turf for the winter time. And you know, it wouldn't be, you know, it would be still cold like. You know, in a big room like that, a little fire there, sure. What would it be down here, kind of thing.
They had for the playground, they used to have the girls on one side playing and the boys on the other side. But inside in the classrooms, there was yeah.
And he was good that way, teaching gardening and things like that, and you know, vegetables.
it's a lovely idea, really.
To us, yeah, but I know that was just being a Friday from 12 to 3 was our gardening.
There was no lunch boxes or anything, no. Yeah, they were fun time now, like. What did they wrap? I wrap it in a bit of paper, yeah, get a bit of newspaper and a bottle of milk, and away you go.
Yeah, in 1968, the school was closed and we were given free transport and we were taken to Drumcrook.
I went to Drumcrook School, obviously, and there was a small little blackboard on the wall just inside of the door, coming into the big room, as we used to call it, and the attendance was marked on that little blackboard every day. How many was in first class up to 6th class, and I can remember 112 of a total in Drumcrook School. 112. Yeah. And whether they were all there that day or not, I'm not too sure, but I can remember distinctly 112 being on that little blackboard. Where we all fitted. I do know that that there were 3 sitting in some desks that were just built for 2.
And when we'd come home then in the evening, we'd have our dinner when we'd come home, and we'd have to go out and do the jobs outside then to help my father and mother.
You're in the evening, when you come home, like they'd be, if it was the summertime, you'd be out in the field with the pike turning the hay. If it was the bog, you'd be at the turf. And you know, if it was in the winter time, you'd have like bedding to put in under the cattle in the stalls, or clean out the stalls, and you wouldn't be idle at all, like.
Well, I had to cut it was called Rackenook, between Furze and grass.
But because there'd be plenty of work when you come home in the evening. You're always have to go out and bring in the cows for the milking in the evening and so on and so forth, and help feed the calves, and of course, before the creamery was built, we separate the milk at home. Yeah, and then make the homemade butter and so forth before the creamery came.
Watch your father do it and see him do it, and that was it. Milking cows, milk a couple of cows, maybe cow or two before they go to school in the morning.
Yeah, so you'd hand milk?
Oh, hand milk, yeah.
Yeah.
Hand milk. It was the separator that time was separate the milk, the cream, and make the butter, and they'd sell the butter, and they used to a truck, or a little green truck, come from once a week out. I think it was once a week, every Thursday. They used to come from about Reliance in Bantry. Reliance, I think. It's where Keith took it all over Super Value crowd now. Reliance. So his name was Scoraíochting, and he used to come around the valley once a week, and they'd sell the butter to him. He'd take the butter and butter and eggs, or the big thing, like.
Yeah. And would you sell the milk as well, or would it just be the butter? Would you process
no, that was later than when we started going to the creamery, like.
Yeah.
But before, in my very young days, it was the separator and separating the milk.
Yeah.
And the cream and make the butter.
So the butter was the value?
Butter was the value.
Yeah.
The butter was the value, and we talk about hygiene and the rest of it, but in the scorching summer he'd come around. I don't know how they take the butter, they take it back in the barrels, or I don't know how they keep it from.
You must have had some bit of ice in the van or something.
There was no ice that time. I don't think.
No.
Not the salt, like I'd say,
Okay, it was just the salt and the butter preservatives.
Ice, I don't know how you used to
No refrigeration.
When you'd separate the milk, you get the cream off it, and then they'd make butter and they'd sell that if your man above the cross. You might have, if you had a good few cows, like you could have maybe 20 pounds of butter like that, which was only a half crown that you maybe get for a pound of butter. That half a crown, that was about 12.5 pence now, like in Ireland.
Yeah.
But that's the way it was, Gil.
The Mealagh creamery was a godsend, and
very important.
Yeah, and of course the shop then, you see, made all the difference, because you were able to get what you needed in the shop, and then you see you bought the stuff on tick and just taken off with the checked in, and you got the checked in, and after everything was paid for. That's how it worked.
A couple of nights a week, and you'd have skaters. The neighbours, they had nowhere to entertain themselves or anything. They'd go to each other's houses. They'd have the news of the day, like, and...
The Scoraíochting was very, very important, because that was the social get-together for people in the evening. And basically, whoever could tell the best story got the audience. And or I sometimes say whoever could tell the best lies.
Well, the Scoraíochting was I was meant to go around the Scoraíochting, as we call it, and that word came natural. We always heard that lie. And driver mostly coming here, he was Jack O'Shea from Golans.
Mikey Cronin. He used to come down 1 night a week. There was a labouring man above with wheelies. He'd maybe come twice a week. Yeah, he would have it 2 or 3 nights a week. You'd have someone in there.
And that time, if some neighbour came Scoraíochting, and if you were in the middle of the rosary, they'd always kneel down then. They'd kneel down, and until the rosary be finished, there'd be no more smoking until the rosary was finished. Then we'd have to go to bed then. And the neighbours would not chat. There used to be calling Piseógs, right? Yeah, Piseógs. There'd be any stories. People used to say that,
say they'd be trying to frighten people like the way it is, probably like the way it is. They were saying they see something, you know, somebody that was dead, they see him marking the roads like the way it is across the road. So we were always sort of, they might be sure some listen to that.
There would be the odd fairy story, all right, they would. Whether the fairies were there or not, I don't know.
There was a fella coming home one night and he thought there was fairies after him and it was a goat.
And when stories were told in the Scoraíochting house, they were like the snowball going down the hill. They never got smaller.
We had there was a light showing off and that scene at the top of the road. There was say lights and things here and there. But when we were widening the road there, then above putting in a piece of the bridge or something, I cut the tree. And so there was a nice flat piece up on top of it for to set a candle or a lamp or something. That was the light. Oh, yeah. You know, it was put there like for the light.
That was the fairy.
That was the fairy, yeah. That was a nice.
Well, I noticed that if children were around, they wouldn't talk about the troubled times and the black and tans and what they did and the Civil War and the rest of it.
The television started to get rid of Scoraíochting. Yeah. Because you went into somebody's house and there was something on.
And he'd come early in the evening and we'd be playing cards all night. And when it'd be time to go home, we'd light a lantern for him and give it him and away he go.
There was always an awful lot of singing in the Mealagh Valley. I think there was always a lot of music.
Yeah, the shop. See, there was 3 rooms downstairs, and they would be playing cards in one room, and they'd be dancing then in the kitchen. And they'd be selling middlers and things there on the shop side of it. Yeah. There'd be plenty of music and dancing for maybe around 3 hours or that way every Sunday evening or Sunday night.
You had the thrashing balls, you had the run balls, and then we used to have the stations. Yeah. And you know, there was usually a bit of a sing-song, maybe a dance after the stations. Yeah. You know, and so you know, there was plenty reasons to sing and opportunities to sing.
I remember one night I was going to a dance and I don't know where now, to be honest with you, but my father was inside and he wouldn't let me. So what I done, I went upstairs. There was a little window and a ditch in the other side. So I caught my shoes and my clothes and flew them out the window and I reached over the hedge above. So then I went around and I said I was only going out as well. So went around and picked them up and off I went.
Bantry Crowd, he was the most popular and a lovely singer as well. He was brought in. And there was a lot of the young people now, like the Bryans at the end of the road. They're Pat Bryan and Timothy Bryan. They're Deacon, they were lovely players. And Dennis Bryan was a lovely player as well.
There was a crowd go out on the rand, they'd collect so much money. And they'd make up so much and they'd buy so much drink then.
Light was an oil lamp single wick, a candle, and for outside would have been the Starum lamp or Starum lantern, which again was single burner, but had a special globe around it that the wind would stop it quenching. And those actually lanterns, they burned a lot of places because people were careless with them.
And then later on down, then the Tilly lamp came in. That was a godsend. And the Tilly lamp, of course, then it burned at the strength of vaporizing oil. And when it was reasonably hot, then you pumped it up and turned it on, and the mantle lit up, and that was marvelous.
For so much time to gradually go down, then like after say maybe an hour or two, you'd have to give it another couple of pumps and to brighten it up again.
It was Molly and Mikey's shop, as we call it. I'd say to be down a good half mile from here, down at the bottom of the slope of the road there, down at the corner, and they used to always have the oil and the mantles, and they had a lot of groceries and everything there too, which was so important for the locality like that.
We didn't buy much in the shop.
Yeah.
To be quite honest with you. the few things you bought, like sugar, salt, bread soda, flour, tea, you know, and you wouldn't be seen buying veg. Oh no, you wouldn't be seen buying veg, and if you're seen buying potatoes.
Like the only thing you'd need would be, I mean, paraffin oil for the oil lamp. Like there was no such thing as that fella. Paraffin oil, and that was your light, and you'd get one salt and sugar and nothing else. Like nothing in the line of food, like really, because you had it all at home, from the farm, like.
In the north side, in Drumsullivan, you had Willie Carney's little shop. And then the next shop over then you had was by the school, which was known as Mrs. Patty's. Her husband was a shoemaker, I think.
They were self-sufficient almost with their own animals and fowl and everything, and eggs, of course, there was always hens.
I learned how to cycle when I was, I suppose, about 10 years of age. Yeah. And you know what it is? If we were seeing the day, I remember I had a frame of a bicycle and a wheel, and I had a piece of a stick put through the wheel, and the frame fitted down on the wheel. It was only 2 wheels and an old frame that I found in the shed. And I made my bicycle out of it, and I carried out where I run down to the house from a hill, from the road, where a bit of a slope out from the house, and I'd go to the top of the slope. God, I don't say this now, they say where I'd met. And I'd fly down the hill with the bicycle.
No brakes.
No, there was no brake in it. And if I fell, I fell, and if I didn't, and if I fell, I fell, and if I didn't, I stayed up with it. Yeah. So that was how you learned? That was how I learned to cycle, yeah. Yeah.
We hadn't much to play with. You'd get toys at Christmas. Then I can never remember getting toys just for getting it. You kind of feel with anything you found, No, very simple. Very simple.
Well, one kind of, I was the summertime, you remember more than the winter, because, you would have the days would be longer, but the summer holidays or the summer weekends or evenings, probably we'd kick the ball a bit around outside in the fields a bit, or
you could spend a half a day down in the river, just making your own game of it.
We hardly ever see a frog now, because in ours we live by the river. You'd have otters, badgers, rabbits were just tinny penny.
And I was below the river one day crossing. I got an awful land. The next thing there was a splash in the river. Yeah. A wild pig. Oh my God. Wild pig.
Eels were there. You had very small trout. The biggest I ever saw was about 3 inches. But when you go down into the main river, go down, it was packed with them that time. Fish. And no. And I had a relation from Waterford. He was down in Lismore. That's a big country for fishing, and he taught me how to fish. So I came on one evening, started fishing, and I caught 64 trout. And they were trout about there in one evening. Yeah. It was around the valley, giving every house or fish. But then silence came in there. Things changed for the worse. We know through. I don't think we ever bought much fertilizer. It was all of this. The dung from the cattle, you'd store that over the winter. But as we progressed, as we say, everything was flowing into the river. That's my opinion.
when I was going to school, as I said, I had two brothers, and we used to go to school together. And we used to stop in this little old lady's house on the way home from school. And she had a garden in front of the house. And she had gooseberries and blackberries and black currants and all growing in it. And she used to say to us, we'll go out and play outside for a while. And sure, we had a little shop outside in the garden. And do you know what it is? I suppose come 4 o'clock or 4:30, we decided to go home. And we'd go home. Sure, my mother would be home and she'd give us the dinner when we'd go home. Do you know, I often think, if that was today, the mothers and fathers, they'd be gone mad. They'd think something had happened to the children. Do you know, they never worried about us good or bad when we were small growing up, like. Thanks be to God, it was great.
Freedom. I was above in the Gorse area. I was working in DSP at the time. And on the national show, you come out from school and I was working at DSP. But I couldn't get over 6-year-olds with mobile phone. I was dumbfounded. We had nothing, but we were happy. Look.
So
Electricity came. I was the last up the side of the valley. We got it in. My father was born in 74, and we had no ESB. We got it in 75. 75. We got the shutdown. We thought we were in the bee's knees. We never even see a poor day.
Born in 57, I was 13 when we got electricity.
I'd say I must be I must be into my teens a bit.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah. Probably 15, or I don't know. I don't know what year it came in, but I remember it coming anyway.
10 to 12. Yeah.
And it made a huge difference to you.
Oh, that changed a bit.
I suppose the biggest difference was the fridge. Okay. Yeah, that was the most important thing, to keep the food from going off. Yeah.
To have an electric kettle was
light.
But there were a lot of people that time. They were afraid of light. Yeah. Like you hear the stories, they'd put on the switch and they'd be afraid of something like that. But we took it anyway when it came around. But I should have changed everything. You got a radio, didn't they, that father?
Now, the electricity came to the Mealagh Valley prior to when we got it, but quite a lot of people didn't take it the first time because they were afraid they couldn't pay the bill.
And I remember it would be 6 foot deep. I remember the holes in it that they'd dig for the pole. The pole had to go down 6 feet. And then they had to dig a good size because they'd have to stand into it and to work, be able to use the shovel to draw it out. But I remember that very well, seeing some, and a lot of local men got work at him in DSP because like there was a lot of man work needed for it, like.
I had applied for a job in DSP because I know the jailers told me there was one coming up. I think the most exciting one was Dorset Island. We did Cape Clear, Shirkin, Marley.
Oh, there was phone boxes. There was a phone box at the end of the road in there by Connie Ryan's there, at the Reliance Bridge. There was a phone box there, and there was another one over beyond Drumclough School. There was another one there.
Up to I moving in here, I had no phone, okay? But people could contact you.
They'd find a way, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like that people found a way.
There were people used to go out and make phone calls and that there. Yeah. Yeah. Then they didn't have phones, like. Yeah. But then it went all automatic then, like, and so. Then I went to the post office then as a telephonist. Oh, that was way different than today's one, yeah. It was a switchboard. That time it was a switchboard with a load of cards, 2 rows of them, and the light, the bulb, a light shine up, like, and that was somebody ringing in looking for, and you'd pick up the card and you'd go in and you'd say number please to them and you'd take down their details. That time, then the phones that were in the houses around here was that when they'd pick up the phone and to call down in Kerkle post office. Kerkle post office, they'd plug in and the switchboard plug in, and that'd call inside in Bantry. Oh, they were just coming in like that. Them very few had them there, but there was no. It was only just you'd pick up the handle or you pick up the phone. You'd wind the handle and tap it, and pick up the phone then, and they'd answer in the post office. Yeah.
So it was a big change for the country, and then you had a lot of electrical implements that would help, apart from the dwelling house and the farm as well then. So that, and for milking the cows and everything, it was an engine. It was an engine. I remember we have an engine before electricity came for milking the cows. All right, it was a Peter's air-cooled engine. It was, that you turn the handle, started like, but that was used earlier. But then the electric motor, of course, got in for the milking machine.
I think it was either 69 or 70 we got into electricity in ours. And one of my neighbours up the road, Connie Sullivan, we'd better know him as Connie Killarney, and he had a milking machine at the time, and it was powered by a little petrol Lister engine. And I always remember the hum of that engine, because bear in mind, in those days when you lived out in the country, and if you see a car passing, you stopped and had a good look at it, because it was a pretty rarity. People were lucky to have a bicycle.
There was one car in the valley, maybe there was 2. But when we lived down there, like, there was no lady living beside us. She was Katie Champion. And she'd come always visiting into our houses, and I'd be listening to their stories or something from my mother, and they might have news about some fella dying. And they'd say, sure, he was 40. So 40 and 50, that time seems like old. You know, yeah, sure, he was 50. Do you know that kind of way, like? But
I suppose the other joke I make is that in my childhood we had a car, but it was pulled by a horse. People find it difficult to get their head around that at this stage. My father bought his first car, a Morris Minor, in 1974.
A Morris Minor. Actually, it was my brother's car. He went away to England working. He went away to England, he left the car, and I picked it up driving.
Bought a Morris Minor. He said there 762.
so there was just the two cars in the road that time. They got him in here to take us into Bantry, my mother, and that woman, like, and myself. But like, until the day I'll die, I'll never forget. It was my first day in Bantry. And I just couldn't for the life of me understand going down Glengara Fort where the houses were tight to each other. I could not get that out of my head, even since, that the houses were clung on to each other. Yeah, that lived in my memory while I'm alive. And another thing was the same day they bought me a ball. You know, the smart little ball in that. I bought a ball and a pair of Wellingtons. And when I came home in the evening, I had some old bite to eat, a bit of crushed bread or something. We didn't have a lot to eat, but we kept us going. But I remember going straight down to the bog, you know, the turf, the old rough ground, with the ball. And every hole of water I'd find, I'd jump into it, you know, the Wellingtons. And so I lost the ball anyway. And I gave weeks looking for it after evenings. Weeks and never found it after.
The one thing that you will remember of the bog is the midgets. They absolutely ate you. Yeah.
That was cut back in a man's name by he was Jack Shane Golans to be about 2.5 miles away. Slán was a type of to be a timber handle on it, and it was like a right angle. You'd have, you know, and to be edgy, like to slice down, and it was always clear, you know, to cut a kind of a long square, a long sod.
Maybe you'd take in things were so bad, you might take in a carrot turf, you know, the old turf in the bog. You might get £1 for a harsh load of it, like that'd be your. You might get a few messages for that kind of, and that was it. That's the way things were. You know, things were pretty bad.
No. We used to just cut our own turf for our own use, like, yeah, for our own use. Yeah. So, like, there was a lot of that hard work in that as well, because you'd have to make it up. Yeah, and turn it first and then make it up. Then draw it home. Yeah. Oh, horse and cart. Yeah. Horse and cart.
That was a big event too, cutting the turf. Everyone contributed. When she'd bring out the tea dinner during the day, it was lovely having it outdoor.
We were called for the dinner food in the bog. She put out a white cloth and a pike below the house. And you'd know, you'd know it to be about 1.5 then. Or if my father was helping some neighbour at a cow, and if we had a cow in a calving, my mother, he'd be in the watch out first. She'd put out a white cloth where he could see where he'd be.
He'd have 3 sods going at the time of the slán. He'd have one touching the ground, one in the air and one in the slán.
Yeah, fast. Yeah.
To be cut around, it was around the first early May, and to dry, to depend on the weather. If you got say 3 fine weeks, to be dry. But in wartime you might get 3 weeks of rain maybe, and to be snow, to take it a good while to dry it in. There was only 1 year I can remember that we didn't get it. Yeah, it was back I think in 1958 or something, 56 or something.
The summer was continuous rain?
Continuous rain, yeah.
The turf would be cut and spread out on the bank, and we had to go and turn it in, and when it was suitably dry, then build it up in cocks and dry it further, and yeah.
Was there a body found here in the bog?
Yeah, I've been on Sullivan's, yeah. So George found that. And they cut in the turf, they found the claws.
And they ran to these claws and some human remains. That's all I know. He was supposed to be an English spy. That's what they said anyway.
It made grand fire. It was the old timber trees of the bog that was rotted into the bog for years. And when you'd be cutting the turf, then you might come across a big block. You'd have to kind of dig around and break it to get it out. And when it would dry up, then like to make lovely firing. My father used to give maybe 3 or 4 weeks breaking the fir, and it was lovely firing. Lovely.
It was open fire, and turf and timber used to be burned there, and timber that and the mears used to be cut with it. The chainsaws weren't there then. It was always this cross cut, which was a long saw with the man each end of it. And the hatchet was the thing for splitting the blocks, and yes, it was turf and timber were the main. I hardly ever saw collates here and I young. It was always the timber and the turf and the timber, yeah.
When I was young, to boil the kettle like was in the fire.
Yeah.
In the fire and bake the cakes. My father and my mother. My father was a grand baker. Like he was, he was not a choice. And going back down again, but he was not a choice. Like, and his first, he had 5 children. But the first 3 sons and 2 daughters. But the first, and she was buried. She died a young woman, and he was left with 5 children. So he, like he said himself, he learned to bake fast. I think he was a grand baker actually, lovely bake. Yeah.
We did have an open fire, yeah. It was bloody beautiful fire. You know, it was grand because you could sit down to it at night and it would be grand and warm. I know a lot of you go up the chimney, but still like.
There was a big open fire there anyway, and I growing up, and a big chimney. You could, when the fire wasn't there, you could stand in where the fire would be, and you could look up. You'd put down your head a bit, of course, because there'd be mantelpiece over the fireplace there too. And it's been called a clevy at that time.
No, an open fire. And an old small primus up on top of the...
The crane, there was a crane in this old fireplace in that where you'd hang the pots and things on.
We did, and the kettle hanging on the crane, and you'd hang the vegetable on it for the cakes to bake and all that like. There was a seat inside the fireplace, yeah. You could roast your 2 legs at times. Yeah. And if you sat too near the fire, you'd have, what did they call it, ABCs in your leg, you know, from the fire. Did you ever get ABCs in your legs?
We had 3 bachelor neighbours that lived next door to us. They were O'Driscolls. And where my mother would have baked the bread in the oven, they used to bake it in the vestibule. Mm-hmm. And we used to love to go there because it's such a different bread.
She used to do it in the open fire first, but then we got a range. Yeah, we got the range, then like, and there was a, yeah, the range was, that was like a cooker, didn't like it? Yeah, it was, well, just.
There was a Stanley number 8 in the house at home. It was put in before I was born because the chimney was a bad drafter. But what I think of what work my mother did with the Stanley 8, okay? So it heated the house, it heated all the hot water that was used in the house, and don't mention the back boiler. The boiler was to the slightly cooler side of the stove. There would have been a large pot that was always heated. The water was constantly heating on the surplus heat from the main part of the range, right? So it heated the house, it heated the water, it made all the meals, okay? It baked the bread and aired the clothes.
It was, if you liked, it was nearly all body washes. Like, you couldn't put the whole lot of yourself into a bath. You'd have to boil the hot water for wash your face, and then put some cold water into it then and get the soap and away we go then.
Water came from the well, not from a tap.
Yeah, it was a simple life, yeah. There was no electricity. We the well, we down the land. That would be one of the jobs you'd get in the evening when you'd come home from school. Go down and get a bucket of water and...
Yeah, there was like an outhouse, yeah, but there'd be no bathrooms in the houses, like no running water, so you couldn't go to there was a thing outside you could use, all right, like a toilet outside you'd use.
You had that, no, there was no pumps, no electricity or anything. You would have a saucepan below all the time. You just fill up your bucket away you'd come. Like the water out of the well was special. That was for drinking and anything that was cooked or anything. But we did stream down there on the bottom, pass us down. That's where you'll get the water for washing buckets and things like that. Oh, it was so cold, like, it was lovely. You'll always remember.
Neil is a very unique gift in that Neil can water the vine. So can you water the vine?
Well, I feel that most people could do it. How I kind of learned it all was to think about doing it even. We were bringing water from the well here now young. But I remember our friend John McSweeney back the road, Carnacre, he used to do it like, and he came out to where we could dig a hole that we get water down from the higher ground above us, And so we saw him, and he got this, it was a Sally glog, as I'd call it. He got a nice handy one of them, not too heavy either, and we saw him use it, and he'd walk over the ground, a Y shape with kind of a long leg out of it, a bit longer, a small bit longer than the leg out of it, you know, and you would have a kind of a pointer out of it, then from the glog, a bit of a small bit of the main stick underneath it, like a small bit of that. But like you could, if you walk over ground, and you'd find like that when you'd get over a spring underneath would start pulling down. Yeah, and you know, if you kept walking on past, then it would ease off then again, and then if you came on another one of them, you kind of check around. So when I used to be going up for the mare then, in the mornings, I'd catch it and I'd have it up and I'd fooling away with it, and I was kind of half laughing at the idea to set next to it. I thought, you know, and then all of a sudden I could find that, you know, I could find that pulling in me a bit, and I keep going again, and next, maybe after another while you'd come across another spring underneath, a water vein of water. And that's how I kind of, because I thought first like that, you know, that it didn't make sense maybe, but it actually works. It actually works, and that you could that you could find, like, then you could trace in where the spring was coming or going, like you could, if you know, the more, if you went away from to the ease off, and if we came back over and you would kind of follow, you know, you could check it, you would check it out that way. So I use it a good bit in myself, because when I used to have diggers and people didn't need wells, it's to be small, very tidy diameter, little rod, you know, handy, you know, any thickness would do. You once that to be flexible as well, like, and to hold it with your hands. You'd catch it with, I always catch it between your thumb and your first finger, like. And both sides, like, and you'd have to use your hands in that to start going down. I often, if you held it as hard as I could now, to start twist itself, to start to crack itself, like, in your hands. Or that would, yeah, if you were on a good spring, that if the pull was that hard, to actually be trying to crack itself, to twist itself at your, to go down anyway, like, if you were strong enough to hold it. Yeah. And then, but like, it's people that studied it more and things like that, but I wouldn't have followed it that much, like, but, and it worked, like, but some people do reckon they could nearly tell from once that first feel it starting, like, as you'll be walking, we'll just say if there was a spring there where you are now, you check how far, what distance it was before, when you first felt it, like, to maybe when you had the deepest of it, like, and then as you start going from that again, then you'll find it getting weaker, you see, that you'd find, and you'd put a marker on the where it was most in, and you dig the well there, kind of, and yeah.
This field here, this was called the field in the shed, and the one next to it, that was called Paraffin, and the one next to that, then that was the field of the bridge. And the bedded in was say the house, and there was a field out of a well there, that was the field of the well. And a field further down then, there were steps, people was crossing there one time, that was the field of the steps. And the west one, it was Parcada. And the one was say the gate there, you go up from the old house, that was Parcanoan. And the one further up there, you go up towards the cross, that was Parkin Marsh. And then the three fields above the road there, they were called the Piseógs. And the one east at the bridge then, that was called the field of the bridge as well. Yeah. And there was two more then, I think they were the two lappers, they were two kind of high fields. They all had their own name.
It was amazing that they were given Irish names, wasn't it, George?
It was.
Yeah.
Which my father, I said my grandfather, no, it's nearly all Irish he was talking, I think.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, I suppose the one thing that we would have noticed would be the birds, and we were always looking for birds' nests.
3 families of us used to walk up, like I said, in the park. Would come or going or coming out. Whoever would have the most nests during the summer. So we'd be scouring the ditches and pretty good fun.
You know, well, I wouldn't harm him, but you know, you'd like the queen if there were small birdies or whatever.
He was growing up like, we had a little wall up from the house like, and there'd be rakes, little birds, you'd see the little bird going in and you'd go up in and you'd be looking up and after a while you'd see the little birds inside and the small ones would come out and you'd go up to them and you'd do like the mother used to do and they'd all open their mouths, they'd think you had something for them. Do you remember that?
Yeah. It is made of moss and it is coated in and the inside with feather. You see the way it is built, it is unreal for the size of the little thing.
We should love finding the wren's nest, we'd find robin's nests and blackbird's nests and so forth. Yeah.
What birds can do. It was the pigeon or the dwarf. It's just a heap of sticks. If you got kindling and turn it upside down.
And this little small, the little girl then is 10 and the little small one is 5. And I've been always saying I'd love to find a bird's nest to show them what a bird's nest was. I can't find a bird's nest. And when I was growing up like
a child.
They've changed eyes. They levelled all the ditches.
Levelled all the ditches.
Levelled all the ditches, yeah. There are no ditches left. Yeah. They have, because like you could be looking at the valley across there that time and you might see a stretch of land where there'd be maybe 5 fields. Yeah. But look there now, there might be only 1 field. Yeah. And then another thing now is that there's bunches of forestry here and there. You wouldn't see them in the early days, like no such thing as big forestry growing up. Not at all.
Like I said, we had a lot of elderly, unmarried men and women. And I often said at the time, looking back, like 79, that's kind of 46 years ago. Looking back then, and for some time afterwards, it looked very much like that a lot of the Mealagh Valley would not be inhabited. That would have gone, because planting was the money coming in for planting at the time was tempting.
There was grants given out like the same, yeah. Some people were kind of gone out of the area then and sold their place and just forestry bought it and planted it. Mm.
The country scene was slowly changing. You see, we had a lot of immigration out of here as well. And most of my generation immigrated. That's why I said earlier about that I was, in 78, I was going to join my 2 brothers in Germany, because there was nothing here.
I can remember, I suppose, people going away rather than people coming back. Like it's the time we came here now, around 52. Things are bad now. Yeah, I can see where they went. There was a family over there now, next door. And there was 3 of the girls went to America. I can remember them going. They didn't come back. We used to go over there in the summer and do the hay for them, come the hay. There were 3 lovely girls. Now, you could say someone from nearly most houses went there.
Getting older, I see it as a privilege that I was lucky enough to be able to stay here and raise a family and make a living in this area, we mightn't have a quantity here, but we have a quality.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, and that quality is very special.
Very precious.
It's very precious, yeah.
Well, but there was a lot of fences that have in the fields for a start. Every field was a couple of acres maybe, and you know, there'd be fences then. But as time went on, and even machinery got bigger, and I got a digger when I maybe around 20 in that way, and of course we started knocking them and making fields. You know, that an odd fence was knocked, and then as time went on, we knocked more of them and did a lot of draining as well. And a lot of the land around here was heavy, so there was I did a lot of draining in the land as well that way, because when you had your own, before my time, they did it by hand, like, and because I came across a lot of good old drains, all piped with stones, of course, and flags, and they had gully. They had the V drains and the gully drains in, like, with the stone each side and the flag on top of them for the, you know, for the bigger volume of water. But like the majority were done like with the V, like the stones stood each side against each other, and there'd be backers to stop them from collapsing. And that was all very important, because if that weren't done, one of them would slip and it would block again. So they knew what they were doing right in the olden days.
The rain on the way, yeah.
Yeah.
As you see the cattle lying down for a good long length of time, so the sign of rain. And as you see the swallows flying low, that was a sign of rain as well. Yeah. I suppose there were more signs too, but I can't think of them.
The cows, if a cow was sick, there used to be, yeah, for the ivy, give them ivy. Oh yeah, the ivy, there was in, yeah. After calving, if a cow was sick after calving, they'd give them ivy. And there was such a thing called bran then. Bran, you mix it with water, and they'd give them that for so many days.
So would there have been remedies,
you know,
or the home medicine that you would have used? What sort of things did you use?
I can remember I jumped off, there was no fence over there now for the tree. For that tree there was a fence going across there. I remember I jumped off it one day anywhere, and I was swinging up there. And what did I come down it? And a bit of a pike and went up through my leg here, right out the top.
Yeah.
And there was no going to the doctor, only go up to Katie.
Yeah.
Do you know what the cure was that time for that kind of stuff? Paraffin oil.
Paraffin oil.
Paraffin oil to throat it. Yeah, and by cripes, I never had to go to a doctor. I bit from my leg after it anyway.
Yeah.
Straight through and out above, and tried to pull out that. Oh God.
Yeah.
But another day, there was a man over here, the road there, and he used to suffer from very kind of sore legs and things. He said he used to be always rubbing methylated spirits onto his legs to keep them soft.
Yeah.
And of course, my dad was going to town the stadium, like any fella would be going to town with a horse and car. Anybody that want days, if they see some fella coming, they'd stop him and bring so many messages. You should have it the way it was, because nobody had transport.
Yeah.
And of course, he said to my father, Tim, he said, could you bring me home? He said, a bottle of methylated spirits. He said, rub that to his feet. And anyway, the father brought home to him anyway, and God almighty, next thing he rubbed on so much when I was over there. I used to be milking the cows for him. That time I was only about 10 years old and trying to milk. He'd have about 12 cows, and I tell you, because some of them were fairly cranky, and I tell you, but lashing and kicking, like, you know. He was rubbed on all the stuff to his legs, and he had his legs up on top of the range. Lord God, after a bit, the two legs went in fire. God almighty, roaring. Do you know how he cured his legs? Just had to believe it. Cow shit, cow manure.
Yeah.
Filled up he used a big wooden trays like that height for feeding the cows.
Yeah.
And every time he'd see the cow having a kind of a diarrhea, stuff.
Good run of it.
Lord God, yes, the scowl we used to call it. Fill it up with, and he'd bathe his legs inside it. And by the Lord God, he cured his legs.
Wow.
Even I remember my own son there, Timothy's the eldest lad, sure he's above there now. They had little planes or something made with paper himself and Alison, and there's something like that done around the place, and this day, and it was in the winter time, and my mother had my Bernie the Creator, and she was a mighty woman for the fire. She'd always have a mighty fire, and it was cold she had this time anyway. And it was blazing, and of course Alison threw the thing or something, and of course Timothy went for it and fell in the fire. That time it was a big open fire. Yeah. Lord God, his hands and his legs. I thought about the cow shit. She said he will poison the young fella. So did Dr. What was his name in Drummerig at the time? He said he'll poison the child. God almighty. Would you believe there wasn't one mark in that young fella after the cow shit? Yeah. There was a big cure killer. Yeah.
People were good at it, right? Going to the doctor was kind of an hassle, that. You wouldn't have the money.
One time they'd be swarmed with bees like they'd pitch in a house. They come in, they'd pitch, or they could, one of them they pitched inside the chimney there one time. But I hadn't seen him now for an awful long time. Honeybees. Yeah, honeybees, yeah. Wild, very wild, yeah. They made a nice bit of honey inside the chimney, but the soot. So no, I was with the soot.
Oh, I have got the wild swarms. I can't remember where exactly I got my first swarm. But I felt I can remember it was a swarm that came, and that I've got a swarm every year. Except this year, I didn't get a swarm this year. But I've got swarms every year.
Father Corley used to keep bees. They would have hives there for a long time. And you go up to the bungalow. Yeah. They'd be they called the swarm of bees. Like them too, you know, in the summer, some summer there would be 2 or 3 swarms that come. And there was to depend there, like where they'd land, they could land anywhere. They could. I'd say that's how Father Corley got the bees.
Oh, they come to me. You use an old bee box, and if you old frames, and if you leave the old frames in the box, the bees will smell the honey, and that's what attracts them. Yeah. Well, I think they're fascinating. Yeah, and of course, the fact that they're so important for pollinating my apple trees, and every solitary thing I plant is depending on the bee for pollination. And you know, I'm very conscious of that, and that is part of the reason, one of the main reasons why I keep bees, so that we'll have pollinators.
I'd say definitely. I'd say there is definitely, yeah. There's more of everything now, like there's more rain, more heat, more cold, more snow, more frost. Everything is getting more and more. You know, that's what it seems like anyhow.
I did my job the most, to tell the truth, and was out helping neighbours that had no families, and we'd be sent to help the neighbours, and you might get 2 shillings and you come home and you give it to your parents. That's the way it was, isn't it? Yeah.
You'd hand it back up. Yeah.
That was the way it was. Yeah, but.
And did you enjoy going out working for neighbours?
God knows I did, because they'd have more food probably than we had. Then people would have more food on the table. Like all we had ever was bread and butter, kind of. That was a lot of it, and a bit of meat, maybe once or twice a week. That'd be it, you know.
Okay. So you wouldn't have had meat every day? Oh
no, meat was an awful novelty that time. You know, you'd have plenty butter all the time. That was the only thing you had. Plenty butter and plenty spuds and eggs. There'd be hens and things there all the time.
Charity was a local thing.
Yeah.
But you see, the other thing you have to remember is we were all poor and we didn't know it, because everybody was poor. Mm-hmm. If that makes any sense to you. And you see, charity, as you see it today, it had a very different ethos then. Charity could be helping a neighbour that was in trouble. You talked about money because you didn't have money to give. Mm-hmm. Whereas I see the whole thing now has gone full circle. And the first hat I've been wearing for the last 25 years is the Bantry lifeboat. That's my first hat I wear. And I'm seeing with a number of years that people would much prefer now to give money than time. People are very time poor. Worse than ever.
Yeah.
And when you think back at the way my parents worked, but they still weren't time poor.
They kind of helped each other out. That, say about here and in our car, the thrashing or that, there was a Meitheals come, and then they go to the next house for the thrashing and that. Yeah.
People helped each other. There was no money. You came to me today and I went to you tomorrow and someone else the day after, whatever, right?
You know, we always went around to neighbours and we only even help them with hay and things, but I suppose the thrashing, you had to have a lot of people at that any because there was a lot of work in corn and at the thrasher trying to, you know, pipe the shaves up to the thrasher, and then to be when it was thrashed, the straw rake had to be made, and then the grain had been drawn to the lofts, so that, and they were all up steps, so that these bags of grain, you'd want a good strong legs and back for the men that usually did the haulage. They were usually well built for it, like.
The women worked harder than the men, but they were silent partners, because if they didn't, somebody went hungry. That's reality, like.
There was no difference really, everyone kind of, yeah. There was no difference, like.
You'd have to have a big crowd to do the thrashing all the time, like, because there was a lot of different things to do, and you'd always have all the neighbours around, and sure they'd help each other when it come to their place, like. There'd be at least 10 needed, I'd say, for the thrashing, like. And they'd have plenty porter, of course, but the porter.
The Willie's a thrashing machine, Tim Willie. And they didn't hold some bar and or there, and there was part of the Roosters game. There were several different Pat Sweeney.
There'd be 2 on the reek, and there'd be 2 per up. There'd be 4. There'd be about 2 more at the 2 more to doing the bags for the corn, and they'd be then. Well, if they were there 3 or 4 more drying, they'd draw them like to the loft in. Yeah. And
around here anyway, they'd put out a big sheet up the 3 or above, rather than go around and kill the threshing tomorrow. They'd always wait or sing and it. It was nice. Yeah.
It was the man to the station. Well, Mikey Carney.
Right.
Yeah.
And the neighbours came in to help to do the thrashing?
They did. You would have a bit of a meal that day, all right. You would.
Right. And your mother had to do a lot of cooking that day, so...
There'd be extra cooking that day, all right. Well, there'd be a bit of help. You know, the neighbours would help each other, all right. Yeah.
You were saying that even in the late in the year, then when the thrashing was finished in West Cork, around Corndrum League, in the earlier years, that they used to go down to Waterford, and these machines that time in the earlier years, they'd only iron wheels, so they used to have to put tires or some kind of cut rubber over the wheels, the iron wheels for the journeys. And I remember he used to say that it took 2 nights and a day to get down to where they'd be starting thrashing again, and they're trying to be back in by Christmas. They was trying to get finished for Christmas. Then, because there's a lot of corn down there, and there was more steam engines down there, and there was so much more corn there to thrash than in West Cork, like the land was.
No choice but together, they can help each other, yeah. And of course there was the battles of Porter then going with the thrasher too, and that was the... They used to enjoy their porter. Yeah. By the way, I never drank. I joined the Pioneer Total Abstinence Association when I was 12 years of age, after being confirmed. Yeah. And I never ever drank, and I don't miss it or didn't miss it.
Yeah. Oh, no, there was been that ball after the threshing. John Lely used to sing full songs.
Arthur Guinness used to well at the thrashing time anyway, because and like it, there was a trade like everything else, but there's a speciality in it, like in everything. But it was neighbours, a couple of neighbours there. I remember Michael Crowley of Glenbenue. He was one of the main men for tapping the keg, and he'd have other helpers with him, and plenty afterwards.
And they'd bring him out and tap him in. If they were really short, then maybe someone might go back into town again for another one.
There was one man I was very fond of, and he was Jackie Maloney.
Oh, yeah.
But he had one funny saying anyway about like that. I remember he having 2 drinks, and more than one occasion, like now at a wedding or something now, and he'd say, "In Jesus Christ, glory be to him," he'd say, "I'm like a lamb with 2 mothers."
We had 7 breweries. I shouldn't call them breweries. 7 distilleries in the Mealagh Valley at one stage. And there's no need for me to explain what they were making. But you see, in those days, a bottle of moonshine, I think, would have been like 2 shillings or a half a crown. And because there was no money in circulation, the people that made moonshine, it was like a side income. For us as teenagers, it would have been the rabbits. And my late brother Frank, he would have been absolutely a dinger, and all the traps and snares had to be checked every morning before he went to school. That was more important than going to school.
You snare them as the same both. Do you know the wire thing that for catching by you? But it's an art in itself, like, because they're hot, and you must have it set where he lands, like going out a gap now is a great place to catch him.
And then myself and Liam Cotter, we used to dazzle them as well in the night time.
We'd have so many flashing batteries tied together, and we'd have the head of a dynamo, the torch of a dynamo, and which, you know, and the rabbits get dazzled sometimes. If it was a frosty night, they'd run, but if it was a dark, kind of a dark, misty night now, they'd lie down, and the dog would catch them easier any for us then. Because we was selling the rabbits, you see, and there were loads of them in Wispy. They'd be sold for meat, yeah, or like there was often stewed rabbit was often used. I often eat when I was young, yeah.
I reckon they were very intelligent animals, then we can feed, but I thought they were when I was growing up. It was a case of Huygens,
of carrots through here. God, but they were fine big ridges of carrots.
Yeah.
And we had dogs, and we tried a dog in each end of the ridge for the place where rabbits had been coming in. And we used to have to go to the trouble of going up and feeding the dog in the morning and giving them a bowl of water and feeding him at night.
Yeah.
We wound up, believe it or not, with 1 carrot in each ridge that the rabbit couldn't reach with the dog. 1 carrot in each ridge. I can remember that now, as if it was yesterday.
There was a man worked for, I think it was John Lane in Dunmanway, and his name was Dennis or Denny Regan. And he would do a run around the valley once a week. I think it was Wednesday. And he would deliver coal, and he would have basic groceries like bread and sugar, salt, tobacco. Sure, people didn't buy much more. And so he used to buy the rabbits as well from us. So the rabbits would be gutted, which my brother Frank was a topper at. And he could have 30 or 50 rabbits for this guy, Denny Regan.
But you know, rabbits are very scarce. You wouldn't sadly see a rabbit today again.
Yeah, but I suppose they see they got myxomatosis at some stage, you see, and that kind of put people off them, but there's been used a lot in the countrysides one time, yeah.
That Myxomatosis or whatever it was, like, and we stopped snaring them then, but they wouldn't buy them anyway, like, and you wouldn't sell them with that, like, the heads used to swell, whatever they gave them. It was desperate, like, it was a cruelty to animals, if anything, like.
True.
Roll on, Myxomatosis came along, and that put a big dent in our pocket money, because said that if we got the guy that invented the Myxomatosis, we'd kill him. Because I have to insist that there was no money exchanging hands. Like, my parents achieved something, I think, like, and the older I get, the more I realise it. They reared 4 of us on 20 acres, okay? There was no subsidies, and my father never worked outside the house, as in he never worked for anybody else, right? So, like, if they weren't as thrifty as they were, we'd go hungry. But we never went hungry.
You know, thanks to God, we always had enough, like, but you might hear talking about it or something, like, but, you know, we had plenty good food, like bread made in the house, and buds, swede, cabbage, whatever, and plenty eggs, plenty hens.
Like, just go back to big events. The stations would have been a big event. And you'd sort of have to explain to people these days what are stations. They're basically where the priest would come around, say mass for a number of a number of town lands, and then the Jews would have been collected by the priest after the mass. And I would have served mass on some of those stations. And sometimes if you were lucky, you might get a shilling or 2 shillings of a tip, which was nice money.
The cloth would be pinned to the ceiling over the altar.
Okay.
Yeah. A white cloth with a fully thing in it.
Yeah.
Would be pinned to the ceiling over the altar, and the altar with the altars later down, then they left the table as it was, but in my younger days the table would be rose up off of the ground a bit. Up above the altars were higher that time too as well.
That would come around, there was a rota where you would have stations in your house every 5 or 6 years. And of course, it was a great way of you know, keeping the houses in fairly good condition, because you had everything whitewashed for the stations and the rest of it, and you know that, and houses looked quite well. You would have your house looking the best for the stations, but you see, if you didn't have the stations, you know, like everything, things would just drift away, you know.
Yeah, you'll get a feed, and you could get a bottle of lemonade, which was a big treat.
And then when the priests were gone, then the porter and the pochine and stuff would be brought out.
To mass, we used to go. I used to often go there with my mother.
Yeah, across.
To mass, yeah. Walk across. We were probably doing that before my first day to town to see the houses tight to each other. Couldn't believe that, like. But yeah, we used to go down across the land and walk to Castle. Yeah, down across our land, like, and then I think we'd cross over into the next land, because it was in the next land the bridge was.
Whose land is that on?
It'd be on at the time it was Murphy's. Like Bishops now, yeah. So we'd cross over the fence somewhere and go over the bridge there and up over through the land and get out into the road, and the road going down into Kettle then, like, so it'd be about 4 miles. They were straight across that way, like, it would walk probably.
Remember, they did that fasting. This is what people forget, because if they wanted to receive at first mass, they wouldn't have been allowed to consume anything in their stomach after 12 o'clock the night before. Again, you see, thanks to the power of the church, you had big numbers in every house. You know?
Oh, pig would be every house should nearly have a pig, like, you know, because all the houses at that time had lots of kids, you see, and everyone had to have, you know.
One of the more interesting things that I have to add to this is having the sow, having the bonnovs in the kitchen.
Especially winter time or night time, they'd be brought into the kitchen.
Oh, there was rare bonhams inside in the house.
This is something now that people think is third world, okay? But I was having a chat with a guy in a pub one night, and we were having, like I say, never deny where you come from, because if you do, life is over. So that's all right, he said, but I remember having 2 sows in the kitchen.
In the very olden days, they'd be brought into the kitchen for the heat and the protection. The heat of the, to keep the bottoms warm and obviously keep the sow warm. And there'd be a bed, straw bed made for the sow in the kitchen.
And they'd be running around, and when I'd get out of bed in the morning, come down, we'd see the little banners, and they'd be running around, and the sow would be nursing him and everything. You would see her every so often, yeah.
And then you would have an occasion then where the sow would get up and she'd want to scratch herself, and she'd scratch herself off the leg of the table.
Oh, they're extremely sharp teeth. They'd be no sooner born when their teeth would be, or within 12 hours, their teeth would be snapped off, because they'd bite the cows or the sow tits, so that she'd jump up and she could get cross with them and everything. So yeah, my mother was great at that. She was better than any dentist.
And this was before the advent of a thing called the farrowing pin. And the danger was that the sow, which was the mother, would lie on the babies. And losing an animal was crucial.
So no notice at all to if you had a sow having banners in an outhouse, you made a bed in the outhouse and slept beside the sow to make sure that when she got up that she wouldn't lie on the banners, because you see what the sow would do, she'd get up and she'd go fixing the bed, and she'd mix the banners in with the straw and the rest of it, and come on and lie down them then, you see, and smother them. So you had to be there to protect the banners. And I can remember sleeping in the pig's house with the sows, and in the middle of the night you could wake up and the bottom would find the heat, and you could have all the bottom lying around you inside the bed.
So in part of what I jotted down in memories of the Mealagh Valley is one I distinctly remember from being very young. As I did say, my parents were self-sufficient, killing the pig. Now this was a horrendous ordeal.
It was a big job.
Horrendous.
Well, we were killing a pig at home once, and myself and my sister got rest her. We had to go upstairs and put our heads under the mattress. We didn't want the pig. We didn't want to hear the pig screech.
Because the pig wasn't sedated in any fashion. The pig was basically bled to death. So 4 or 5 men would get together, hold the pig down, but there'd be one specific person that would be allotted to stick in the pig, because if the pig was stuck wrong, the pig wouldn't bleed properly. So basically you bled the poor animal to death. And you could hear that pig roaring 2 or 3 parishes away, wouldn't you too, if you were trying to fight for your life. So it was a huge ordeal, that was a big event in the calendar, because the woman of the house would spend the day boiling water. Remember now, there was no electricity in these days. So water would be continuously boiled all day, and you'd fill up a big barrel of water.
But you need about 20 gallons of boiling water, and the pig would be dipped into that then, and they have to be turned on the other side and dipped in then, and you needed help for that.
You needed strong men?
Strong men, yes.
Yeah.
There was no pulleys or anything like that in those days. Yeah. No block and tackles, only brute force and ignorance.
And then you shave the pig with the cut-throat razor. That's reality, Later then people went on to using the blow lamp to take off the hair off the skin.
Up on the table, into a barrel of boiling water, out up on the table again, and start shaving him.
From if the fellow's all a bit careless about the shaving off the hair, you had a hairy bacon then afterwards.
Basically, the payment then for the people helping for the day is they'd have a piece of pig going home.
We get a barrel of salt, and cut off pieces of the pig and put them in, and put the salt all around them, and shove it out into the barrel.
Very little refrigeration.
Cripes, there was nothing, Gil.
Yeah,
There was nothing
yeah.
at all, Gil, yeah. Nothing, Gil. So everything was, you know.
So preserving food, what would you have done to keep
They'd
food
have
for longer?
salted barrels, like the pig inside, and salt meat, like that's what you were always eating, salt. Pork, like the pig or the animal, they'd be all salted. Like there'd be salt, there'd be so much inside, and Lord God, we'd all day drinking water. You know what I mean?
The last batch of pigs that I produced, I had 10 shillings a pig profit, and that wasn't counting my labour at all. So it didn't make any sense to continue with pigs after that.
Well, I suppose like every farm, that time everyone had a bit of everything, you know, so and it was all a part of the farm, but that to survival and you know, so there'd be always, of course, hens. They'd be number one in it for to keep eggs to the house.
Oh yeah, the fair day, there used to be fair day in Bantry then, once a month I think it was, to be Friday fair day it was known as, and they'd walk the cattle into the fair.
The biggest problem like was to try and keep them from going off the road into the first road they'd meet, and when we were young we'd be, and by the way the school would be closed every Friday. Every first Friday of every month the school was closed so that the pupils would help with taking the cattle to the fair. And we'd be sent along ahead and stand at a roadway going into a house to block the cattle from going in there. And
we shut off here at 2 o'clock in the night and walked to Bantry. No bother. I walked to the manway as well.
The day it took as long as for a buyer to buy them, and if they weren't sold, they'd have to walk home again.
So Mick Lucy had a cow for sale, and he went to the fair with the cow. So your man was curious to know what price did he make of the cow. So he said to you, when he met your man, he said, "How did you fare out of the cow?" "Oh," says Mick Lucy, "I wasn't inside in the cow at all."
You would have to take him down to the station. They'd be taken away then by train. You'd have to take him down then, or you could be delayed there then as well, like they'd be slow enough to load him.
And is that now where the new super value is?
Yeah, down there, yeah. You see, the carriages are high and it was hard to get the cattle into the carriages. Yes. But it was, there were no lorries or anything that time, like.
We had our own, we had our own vegetables like the way it is there.
We plant all the hearts and Plough. Yeah. And we grow sweds and cabbage and all that kind of one day.
They used to get rushes then, and then they'd make a heap like of the heap up the potatoes and for the frosts and anything then.
Yeah. And I know sand, you put
the
carrots into sand, and you would preserve them in the sand as well.
We had used to have the potatoes in the Gallant field. We used to call it the Gallant field. There was a stone in the centre of the field. Then all the potatoes would be picked into the pits. Well, there was a day we'd be left off from school that day to pick the potatoes.
Funny enough, the ground that hadn't been tilled was the best place you could plant them. Yeah. They'd call it a ban field. Yeah. Okay. Ban field that hasn't been worked previously.
You let them potato, and you could make 4 out of it. Like. She always was good at that.
Skillans. They'd cut them up, you see. You could make 4 out of one. But they'd have to be in every one of them.
They used to plough in what they called November dark, October, November. And they'd plough the green field with the barn, we used to call it the barn ground. They'd plough the green field in the fall of the year with this. They used to say we'll plough in November dark. And the reason for that was that you'd have the turned sod and the ravages of the winter would break up the ground, and it would be very easy to till in the spring of the year.
Flax was seed, and the seed was put in the ground, and the flax grew up. It would be just the very same as barley, but instead of having a head like barley, it had a head of blue flowers. It was absolutely beautiful now, really lovely blue flowers. Yeah, but then that had to be pulled and it had to be taken to a pond. We had at least 2 weeks or 3 weeks. It had to rot anyway, that's all I know about it. And there was a stink from it. It was even worse than slurry. All the whole thing that was spread out in the field. You had to spread out paper thin. No, my father used to took it to Connacht, there was a mill in Connacht. Yeah, that's near Lip. They used it for linen anyway. Well, we had oats and barley too. We had flax only once or twice. It was very troublesome work. It was troublesome, no mistake about it, like.
They used to actually set fields, furze in a field that time. They were set it, like, for the horse. Yeah.
My father actually set a gorse, or we call it Furze, you call it gorse. He set a small field with furze in it.
So he planted?
He planted furze.
Yeah.
Facing north, they reckon was the best furze you could grow.
Mm-hmm.
And that furze would be cut with a hook and golog and brought in and chopped for the horse. And that was actually very healthy feeding for the horse.
Yeah, my father had a horse, like. Yeah. We cut the furze and we used to often have to turn the handle for the furze machine. Yeah, he'd feed it to the furze machine and turn the handle. Yeah.
The furze for the feeding for the horse. You cut it with the hook and golog and draw it in the vest.
The golog was something like a Y, and you'd put the golog in near the furzy bush, at the top of the bush where the furze was. You'd put in the golog, and with the hook, you'd hit it off, and you'd have a nice little bunch of furze, and you'd bring the furze home in a basket and put it through a furze machine to chop it for the horses.
They used to say, my father used to say in every town that somebody was missing a piece of a finger because of this furze machine, because the cogs weren't covered. Yeah. So I think about 1959 or 60, Frank had the top of his finger chopped off. And even in later years, you see, the nail didn't grow across the top. And when I remember even in the hospital, and I used to tell people that no, that finger he wasn't born with that. The top of that got chopped off in a furze machine. Yeah. And there was no hospital in Bantry that time. So it must be soon after the time I was born. Because
so what was done with him?
He had to go to Cork on the train. Oh. That was a horrendous journey, like. Yeah. But those animals had very little health problems because what they were eating was organic. Yeah. It was extremely healthy. Yeah. You know.
And would there have been feed bought in for the horses, or would you have
as little as possible?
As little as possible. Yeah.
Just being quite honest with you. Yeah. And the more the tractor came in, the horse was disappearing. And plus the fact that all these pursuits were very time consuming, and when the tractor was finished in the evening, you didn't have to feed it. Yeah. You parked it until the following morning. You put diesel in it if it needed, but you didn't have to feed it and you didn't have to rest.
Times were a lot more difficult. Farming was slower because everything was done by horses. You know, when I took over here, there were four horses here on this farm, 4 working horses. So I couldn't wait to get rid of them and buy a tractor.
It's all machinery now, practically anyway, and hay is nearly not as much anymore. The silage have taken over that. But that time it was all hay, and it was a lot of it was handwork, like with the pikes and turning it and cocking it and all this.
The grass wasn't as heavy now then as it is now, like. Yeah. With bagman, there was no bagman going that in. None whatsoever, no. But to be light. Yeah. And you see, if it was anyway heavy, the little finger bar wouldn't be able to cut it or a start off. Right. And you see now it is heavy, but with the big machines and tractors now, look, they're doing in as much in a half an hour as they be done in a week. That time, you know, with a pike and a fiddling around, they do it in a half an hour, like.
A time then for each crop. It was always very important that the oat crop was planted before Patrick's Day. Okay. Yeah, and if you didn't have your oats planted by Patrick's Day, they'd call it cuckoo oats. Yeah, you know, that it was important that you had your oats growing before the cuckoo arrived. Yeah, and if you planted around the time the cuckoo arrived, what was called cuckoo oats. And there was cuckoo oats and corncrake barley. That God, you wouldn't hear the corncrake until out in the year too, you see. And if you were planting barley around the time the corncrake was craking, that would be corncrake barley.
The lark would be rising out of the ground. There you'd hear them, and that they'd be singing. They'd be rising away. And it was beautiful. And you had the cuckoos then in the start of the summertime. We'd be hearing them cuckooing around, and of course the corncrake then.
The corncrake, oh, he'd be a lovely voice out of him, like lovely squeak.
And to be kind of stretchy voice, like, yeah.
And at night he'd come and he'd say, I heard the corncrake, and the corncrake was saying,
He said, late and very late.
late and very late.
We used to love the sound of the corncrake. As you know, the corncrake had a very distinctive sound.
There'd be 2 or 3 of them in different meadows, and they would hear them. They'd be corncraking. They'd be craking away.
Oh, they'd be like, around the field there, no, they wouldn't be that far away at all.
Oh God, this was a great field here. Myself and the father would come down, we'd stand at the gate below, and he'd be about, he or she was about 20 yards. That was a meadow, and I went around. But he hear her, the quaking, it was lovely. We'd stand there for maybe an hour, half an hour anyway. And the piercing noise going through your ear. Not anymore.
There's no more of that now, like. No.
Oh my God, it's years and years. I bought it back in the 60s. Back in the 60s. When the tractor and blade came, it destroyed the corncrake, you see. Yeah.
It was the modern machinery finished them.
But you see, then once it progressed into the tractor machines, they were going around so quick that they kind of done away with them, or they frightened them out with any of the.
And of course, when the hay would be cut later than the silage, so since the silage came in, the field there's more manure used as well, and the fields are mowed, and a lot of those birds, I'd say, got lost in because the eggs would be being hatched in them fields.
My father was cutting, one evening he was cutting a field of hay with a scythe, and he was just going near when she flew out.
Not escape.
Yeah.
And of course, when we were young, when the fields would be mowed, they used to be mowed by horses, of course, the horses and the horse mowing machine. And of course, the mowing machine would upset the corncrake's nest. And when we were young, we used to be gathering up the little chicks and taking them to the field next door so that they'd be safe. And we'd go hide in and watch until the mother come back and gather her chicks. Yeah. Well, I can remember that quite well. But you know, we were always conscious of wildlife. And I think country people would be very conscious and very protective of wildlife.
There's farmers up the country getting money to try and... she was a lovely sound. Lovely sound.
Soft are the breezes that blow in the spring, and sweet is the music the song thrushes bring. But I sigh for a scene that I seldom see now. A man in a field with his horses and plough. Farewell to the days of my youth long ago, when I harnessed my team by the bar down below. Then away to the highlands beside Mealagh, to turn the neat furrow with horses and plough, invoking a blessing at the start of the day. Ballai evan aber is what I would say, hoping for guidance to keep the know-how, to plough a straight furrow with horses and plough. And up at the headland, every once in a while, I rested my body, all aching with toil, with the sleeve of my shirt wiped the sweat from my brow, as I gazed on the work of my horses and plough. With whistling and lilting and the verse of a song, they lightened my labour all the day long. With the seagulls around me and the crows on the bough, all seeking the bounty of horses and plough. And in the evenings, when the sun it sank low, with my hurley and ball to the sports field would go, to win in all Ireland we'd all make a vow, as we sought recreation from horses and plough. But the clatter of tractors, pollution and all, have crippled the couple, and sad was that fall. While far away Opec we richly endow, forgetting the value of horses and plough. And when I'll be leaving this valley of woe to the fair fields of heaven, I hope I will go. One request to St. Peter, I hope he'll allow eternal employment for horses and plough.